Welcome to AI Late to Class, where you can learn how to make AI videos. Welcome to AI Late to Class, where you can learn how to make AI videos.
This is using 2.2 speech to video.
Hi, welcome to AI Late to Class. Going to be doing another lip syncing tutorial using 2.2 S2V model. Done a few samples today, and your question probably is, why would I use this over infinite talk, fantasy portrait, multi-talk sort of setup? And the answer to that is, well, generally it's 2.2, so you should have a better video output, better prompt following and colors, etc. versus the 2.1. However, I think the infinite talk with the expressions and the lip sync is way better. And if you're using fantasy portrait, you've got control better. We do have control in this. I've done a control sample. It didn't come out too good. Also, the length of this is a lot slower. They've combined the two models into one. So that's hard when you're running it on a certain size VRAM. Anyway, you've seen the samples at the start. So this model has its place. I'm just going to go through the workflows now. First thing to talk about is the major problem with this model, which is this color flash at the start of each time the video starts. So it's within the first half a second. And other people around the internet are having the same problem, so it wasn't just me. It's really wrecked it quite a lot. So what I did is, when I get my audio, I go into Audacity, grab it in here, and then I just shift it in just half a second around about, and then export it out so that there's at least a half a second with silence before each video clip. When we get our final video, we just trim the start off, and that way that solves our problem. Now this first shot here of this man standing here, it didn't quite like it from that far back. It's not that great on the movement, and it's not that great on the lips. So let's have a listen.
Is this better than infinite talk or multi-talk? Well, watch this tutorial to find out.
Let's look at another problem with this model. I'd done that with the light X2V turned off, and it took 40 minutes on my computer. And the reason I turned it off is because the first generation I did with the LoRa turned on was even worse than that. It was almost back to the sort of stable diffusion video look, so it was terrible. However, I do have some samples here of with the light X2V turned on, which came out quite quick. Let's have a look.
Back in my day, honey, we didn't have AI late to class to help us.
What's the point of being a cartoon if you can't entertain anybody?
Did you know you can use a control video to pose us?
So with the power of 2.2, you can get some nice outputs. I did, however, trim those startings off, as I talked about before. Now, looking at the workflow, I've got my GGUF loader there. Because I've got 16 VRAM, this is using my virtual RAM, so I put that at 14. I've turned this light X2V LoRa on here. Then we've got a torch compile if your one does support that. Sage attention if you've got that installed. Now this context window, this is our sliding window, right? So it's set at 81 frames. So once it hits 81 frames, it does another block and starts again. So if you've allocated 162 frames, then it'll do 81, then it'll make a new one and do the overlap. You can see the overlap of 20. You can adjust that. And that way you can get your infinite videos going on. Goes through your SD3 model sampler and into the K sampler there. Now notice we only have one, not two, because we have only got one model with this, right? And my one is the Q4. I'll show you where to get those later on. I've put a separate GGUF there. I'll probably put one in the links that'll have the FP8 ready. Now we've got our clip loader. I've used a GGUF for that as well, just because we're using so much stuff. We've got to get our allocation memory down, right? So use a GGUF for the text encoder as well. Got our VAE, and this is another audio encoder. So when you update ComfyUI, because that's what you're going to have to do, it'll make a separate folder called audio encoders, and we've got to stick that safe tensor in that audio encoders folder. Looking back over at our sampler here, Because I had that LoRa on, that's a 4-step LoRa, so I put 4 steps and 1 on the CFG. If I turn that LoRa off, I've got to change that to 20. And then I'm going to change my CFG to 6. And that'll give me a good quality output. However, it's going to take a really long time. I also see I've made on my length of my video 97 frames. So once it hits that 81, it'll go and use the sliding window and then start doing more in the next block. Once we've gone through all of that, we need to upload our audio just over here and then upload our picture. I'm just going to say, I went over to get my audio this time. I went to Play HT, go to Voice Library, and the difference being between this and 11th Labs is you have a massive choice of free voices to go through. When we put the prompt in, I don't put the words talking in there. I did that a few times and noticed that the person was talking when they're not supposed to. So in this situation, I just wrote man is moving arms explaining. You can resize your video in this box here. This one I did 640 by 640.
Where are you, humans? I will find you and end your lives.
Right, where do we go to learn more about this model? Over to the GitHub here. And there's lots of samples here. I don't want to play them because I'll probably get a copyright thing on me. But you'll notice in here, on this one here, the voice of this guy is talking when she's talking. So he's simulating her. So it's not very good at not recognizing that's a different person in there. It looks like a really good lip sync. But same with all of these. There's just slight issues that I've noticed with them. There is benchmarks down the bottom, but they're not matching it up against Infinite Talk and Fantasy Portrait really. So I'd like to see those sort of matchups. Where do we get the models? QuantStack GGUF models. So here we've got the audio encoder. As I said, there'll be, once you update ComfyUI, there'll be a new audio encoders folder. So download that, put that in there, put your GGUF or your safe text, so you can get either one of those text encoders and put them in. It says model text encoders, but it'll be your clip folder possibly. And get your VAE, put that in. There'll be a VAE folder in there. Click on files and versions to get your main model, right? There is a workflow in here, which is the one that I've got, and I've just adjusted it. Choose which one. If you're running one of them, fine, go up a level. Obviously, the FP8 is way better quality than this, so if your computer can run it, I would say run the FP8 rather than the GGUF. FP8 over at KaiJai and the Light X2V. Don't go for these 122 Lightning because that's the high noise and low noise. That's no good when you've got one model, so we have to go back to the Light X2V and have a look down here. I chose the 128 rank. For those of you that want to try controlling the video with your own motions or another control video, I've just changed a few of these nodes around, right? I put this upload video here and I'll come over here, put the DW pose detector in there. I've made sure that I've only got the head drawn here. I've turned off the feet and hands. If you've got one with feet and hands, turn those on. Play with the sliders to get them to what you want. And I've unplugged the audio from the audio box up here and just taken the audio from my video and moved them into the same connectors. So it's just putting this middle bit in between, and the only extra is it connects up here to the control video, just like if you're using Vase. Anyway, I can see some uses for it for some higher quality video output. However, I'll probably stick to Infinite Talk and Fantasy Portrait for most things until some refinements are made. Anyway, subscribe, like, and we'll see you in the next video.